Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, As-Salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Our topic of Waqf al-Ibtida continues, and today we will discuss another way to end the recitation, and that is al-Qata'. The literal meaning of al-Qata' is separation or to put an end to something. In Tajweed rules, al-Qata' is the cutting of the recitation and ending it with the intention of not reading anymore. And for al-Qata', there are certain points that we need to keep in our mind. The first one is al-Qata' can only be at the end of an ayah. It should never be in the middle of an ayah. The best place to end the recitation with the intention of not reading anymore is at the end of the completion of the topic. However, if the reciter cannot do al-Qata' at the completion of a topic, then it's better to do al-Qata' at an ayah which is giving a full and correct meaning. And we also need to remember that doing al-Qata' at the end of the juz or at the end of a hizb or at the end of ruba is not always the completion of a topic, because sometimes the end of these sections are very much attached to what follows it. And if the reciter wants to begin his or her recitation after al-Qata', then they must remember the rules of ista'adha and basmala to start their recitation. So al-Qata' is different than al-Waqf, because in al-Qata' we cut off the recitation and ends it with the intention of not reading anymore, while al-Waqf is cutting off the sound at the end of a word, usually for a period of time of breathing with the intention to return to the recitation. Now we will also see what is As-Sakt. So Sakt literally means silence, but in Tajweed rules, As-Sakt is a short pause on specific words without taking a new breath with the intention to continue the following part. And the symbol of As-Sakt is a tiny scene between the words where one needs to pause and the following words. These pauses or these saktat are to prevent the confusion about the meaning which might occur otherwise. If you see here in ayah number 27 of Suratul Qiyamah, you can see here after the word man, there is a tiny scene, and this scene is a sign of sakt, which means the breathless pause. So the reciter will pause between man and raq. There are 6 sakt rules in the recitation of the Quran in the way of Hafsun Asim Tariqatu Shatibiyya that are divided into 2 categories. The first one is Saktul Wajib and the second one is Saktul Jaiz. And now, inshallah, we will discuss them in detail. Saktul Wajib or obligatory Sakt is a pause that is required or wajib from the reciter who is reciting with Hafsun Asim Tariqatu Shatibiyya to pause without taking a breath in 4 different places in the Quran. And the first Sakt appears in Suratul Kahf when joining verse number 1 with verse number 2. Normally, when we recite the first ayah of Suratul Kahf, we stop at the end of the ayah at the word aywaja by applying maddul iwad, and this is perfectly normal because stopping at the end of an ayah is sunnah, and after the waqf here, by taking a new breath, we start our recitation of ayah number 2, and this is how we recite. Alhamdulillahi alladhi anzala ala abdihi al-kitaba wa lam yaj'al lahu 'iwaja. Now, after taking the new breath, I will recite the second ayah. قَيِّمًا لِيُنذِرَ بَأْسًا. And this is how we usually recite. But if the reciter wants to join the 2 verses together, in that case, at the end of ayah number 1, you see the sign of sakt, which is this tiny scene written here. So in order to join both of the ayahs together, we will not apply the rule of ikhfa here and recite it like this. Alhamdulillahi alladhi أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا. Instead, we will do sakt after the word عوجا, and then without taking a new breath, we will continue with second ayah like this. الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا قيما لينذر بأسا. So sakt here will only be wajib if we are joining verse number 1 with verse number 2. If we are not joining the two verses together, there is no sakt in that case. The second place where sakt is wajib in Hafsun Asim Tariqatu Shatibiyya, it appears in Surah Yasin, ayah number 52. And here we can see the sign of sakt, which means a breathless pause after the word marqadina. But other than the sign of sakt, you also have another sign, which is qila, which means it is permissible for you to continue, but it is better to stop. So if we join the whole verse without stopping after the word marqadina, then upon joining, we will apply the rule of sakt after the word marqadina when we are reciting with Hafsun Asim Tariqatu Shatibiyya, and this is how we will recite. قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون. But if you're following the rule of qila and you are stopping after the word marqadina, this is also permissible, and this is how you will recite. قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا. Now after taking the new breath, هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون. But in case of continuation and not stopping at the word marqadina, sakt in Hafsun Asim Tariqatu Shatibiyya is wajib in this ayah. And the third obligatory sakt appears in Surah Al-Qiyamah, ayah number 27, after the word man. You can see a tiny scene on the top here between the word man and rock. So after the word man, the reciter will pause, and then without taking a new breath, the recitation will continue to the next word, which is rock. And this is how we will recite. وَقِيلَ مَنْ رَاقٍ. And here we need to note this point that because there is a sakt, a breathless pause, so noon sakina is not meeting with letter ra, so there will be no idgham. We will recite noon sakina clearly. And Hafsun Asim Tariqatu Shatibiyya has another obligatory sakt, which appears in Surah Al-Mutaffifin, ayah number 14, where we can see there is a tiny scene between the word bal and rana. So after reciting the lam sakina of bal, the reciter will do sakt, and then he or she will continue the recitation with the word rana, and this is how we will recite. كلا بل ران على قلوبهم ما كانوا يكسبون. And again here, since the sakt is preventing the letter lam from meeting with letter ra, that's why there will be no idgham, and we will recite letter lam with idhar clearly. So these four saktat are required or obligatory when we are reading with Hafsun Asim Tariqatu Shatibiyya. And there are two more saktat which are considered as jais, that means permitted or optional sakt, and they appear in two different places in the Quran when we are reading with Hafsun Asim Tariqatu Shatibiyya, and these are called saktul jais because there is more than one allowed way to recite at these two places. The first one is when we are joining the end of Suratul Anfal with the beginning of Suratul Tawbah. Here you see the end of Suratul Anfal, which is ayah number 75, you see the word alimun, and then Surah At-Tawbah begins with the word bara'a. Because there is no basmala at the beginning of Surah At-Tawbah, here we see the conditions of iqlab. So one of the ways to join is by applying the rule of iqlab and reciting it like this. إن الله بكل شيء عليم براءة من الله ورسوله. And the other way to join Surah Al-Anfal with Surah At-Tawbah is applying Sakt after the word alimun. And this is how we will recite. Inna Allah bi kulli shay'in alim. Bara'atum min Allah wa rasulih. And this Sakt is optional and not obligatory when reciting with Hafsun Asim Tariqatu Shatibiyya. And the third way is Waqf at the end of ayah number 75. And after the Waqf, we will begin the next ayah with the new breath. And all these ways are allowed. And you can check the detail of allowed ways to recite Surah Al-Anfal with Surah At-Tawbah in our lecture of Ista'adha and Basmala. The second permitted or optional Sakt in the Quran appears in Surah Al-Haqqah when reading with Hafsun Asim, Tariqatu Shatibiyya, when we are joining ayah number 28 with ayah number 29. So Saktul Jaiz appears when we are reciting the word Maliya, and then we take a breathless pause, and then we continue the recitation with the word Halaka, like this. ما أغنى عني مالية هلك عني سلطانية. And the other allowed way that we have discussed in detail in the topic of idgham mutamathilan saghir relationship, where we will merge the sakin letter ha of the word maliya into the voweled letter ha of halaka upon joining the two verses. Like this. ما أغنى عني مالية هلك عني سلطانية. And this is also allowed when we are joining the two verses. And the third way is waqf at the end of ayah number 28. In that case, we will not do idgham of letter ha or sakt. And after the waqf, we will begin the next ayah with the new breath. And all these ways are allowed. And that's all in the topic of Sakt and Al-Qata'a. I hope this is clear to you. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.